Time for the 49ers Rush Podcast.
Who doesn't like kicker controversies? And the 49ers have one. Obviously, what's happened with Jake Moody has not been good. It's been very, very bad. And I know a lot of people want to chalk up Jake Moody's issues to the long snapper and the injury, which definitely did not help. It was really bad his rookie year in the playoffs. Missed one kick in every single one of the playoff games, the divisional round, the NFC Championship, and the Super Bowl. There are some issues there. When pressure's up, just seems like it didn't really cut it. And the 49ers went out and said they were going to bring in veteran competition this year to see who wins the job in camp. Well, at number 77 on the 49ers 2025 roster countdown, we have that veteran competition, and that is Greg Joseph. Been in the NFL, entering into his 8th season, and has a lot of experience. Now, he was injured last year. There were some issues with that, but Greg Joseph is wearing jersey number 40, 6'2", 208, pretty good size for a kicker, and he's 30 years old, which in the NFL, not that long in the tooth. It's just his best football, kind of a little bit behind him. He went to Florida Atlantic College, but the way in which he got there was pretty fascinating. He's born and raised in Johannesburg, South Africa. A lot of kickers, international players, but they moved to Florida in 2001 with his mom, 2 younger brothers. And Greg is Jewish and has admitted Judaism has absolutely helped guide him through life. I love just the nuance to the different approaches in religion and just how all these different personalities come together to form a team. You got to love that. Chose football over soccer because he thought it would be an easier way to get a scholarship. Very, very smart. If you could kick, you've got a soccer player. Every single year, whenever I coached, once soccer season was over, I'd go out with a couple footballs and some tees, and I'd line up the entire soccer team. We're kicking field goals today. Who wants to start? Let her on varsity. And in Texas, it was a lot easier than a lot of other places. But if you could kick field goals and you got that leg and you could be consistent, you can get scholarships relatively not easy, but very, very feasible. Full rides as well. He was a 5-year player at Florida Atlantic, and he holds records for PATs, field goals, points by field goals, longest field goal. He had a 54-yarder in college. You name it, he did it at Florida Atlantic. Now, he went undrafted, which every single kicker should go undrafted, even if you're the best kicker ever, maybe a 7th, maybe a 6th. No kicker should ever be drafted in the 3rd round. I don't care. Ever, ever, ever. No punter should ever be drafted that high either. Now, he does have a Super Bowl victory under his belt, kind of. It was with the Buccaneers and Tom Brady and all that stuff, but he wasn't the team's active kicker. He was on the practice squad, but still on a Super Bowl roster, went through the practices, saw what it was like, saw what it takes to be there. He's got plenty of experience to give Jake Moody a run for his money if the 49ers will allow it to be a true competition, which I really, really hope they do. Again, undrafted in 2018, signed with Miami, was with Miami, Cleveland, Carolina, Tennessee, Tampa Bay, Minnesota, and then just last year alone, Packers, Lions, Giants. I mean, he was just all over the place. Washington, the Jets. So he's struggled getting bumped around a lot, and he had an abdomen injury, a core muscle injury, which he was released on an injury settlement last year. But the most important thing, he was with the Jets for a short stint last year. Why is that important? Brant Boyer, the 49ers special teams coach, was brought over from the Jets last year, so there's a little bit of that experience there. The Shanahan loyalty program is real. Same with Robert Saleh, and same with Brant Boyer, apparently. Now, we look at the career statistics, and I want to compare Greg Joseph's numbers as a kicker to Jake Moody's numbers as a kicker. Well, spoiler alert, Jake Moody loses every single category. The only one single statistic where Jake Moody has a better number, that's extra points. Jake Moody is 92 for 94 in the regular season. He did miss an extra point in the Super Bowl. It was blocked, but it was way low and it would have missed if nobody was there. But Jake Moody is 92 of 94 in the regular season with a 97.9% extra point rate. And if you look at Greg Joseph, 157 of 173 comes out to 91%. So if there's one area where it's like, this is where Jake Moody is better, it's extra points. Now, You want to look at field goals? It's not even close. Greg Joseph, perfect 34 of 34, anything under 30 yards. That's pretty normal. Now, if you go from 30 to 39, 37 of 38, he's only missed one. That's a 97 percentile for Greg Joseph. Now, the 40 yards from 40 to 49 yards, that's probably the biggest discrepancy. Okay, Jake Moody, whenever you look at that, he's 10 of 17. That's 58%. As one of the, by far, the worst kicker in the NFL last year that not even got any kicker last year. That was the worst of the worst. 58% from 40 yards. Awful, awful, awful. Greg Joseph, 27 of 38 for 71%. That's 13 percentage points better as a career standpoint, and he's got a longer track record. Now, you look at the 50 yards, same thing. Jake Moody, 50-plus yards. He's 6 of 12. That's 50%. Very easy to calculate. Greg Joseph, 17 of 30, 56%. So he's just better all across the board. And then you look at the playoffs. Now, the one thing that you have to give Jake Moody is he's played a lot more playoff games in his career. They both have made, here's where it gets a little weird. You look at the playoff career of Jake Moody, 6 of 8 on field goals and 8 of 9 on extra points. That's what he's done in the playoffs. All right, well, let's look at what Greg Joseph has done. He's 2 of 2 on field goals, not a lot of field goals, but 12 of 12 on extra points. He's never missed. He's perfect in the playoffs. Small sample size. 49ers have had a lot of playoff games since Jake Moody's been here, but it just hasn't been good. I do not know what else to say besides kickers are strange in the fact that you have to have the talent, no doubt about that, but you got to have the between the ears. Jake Moody just seems to crumble in pressure situations, and you see his face in those times, man, you can just tell he is sweating. It is scary, scary, scary. Now, I do think Jake Moody's going to win this, and that's why we have Greg Joseph at 77. Jake Moody hasn't showed up on the roster countdown just yet, but we'll have to see how it goes. Through OTA's minicamp, both were relatively perfect. There's no pressure in those situations. And Greg Joseph signed a 1-year, $1.1 million deal, 0 guaranteed. So if he gets cut, doesn't cost you much. So the hope is he presses Jake Moody, and Jake Moody takes that next step into being an elite kicker, or just an average kicker, to be honest with you. It's sad that the highest drafted kicker in the NFL currently, we're hoping he's average. Like, just such a wasted draft pick. And cost you several games in his 2 years in the NFL so far. Now, Greg Joseph, his career earnings, $6.5 million. He made the right choice in not playing soccer. And Greg Joseph has played 75 games. He's got the experience, but it's not recently. Last year, only played in 4 games and had the injury. So what's going to happen? Personally, I would prefer Greg Joseph to win just because I think he's much more reliable and experienced and doesn't have that kind of shakeable mentality that Jake Moody just hasn't gotten past yet. And I don't like how the 49ers are making so many excuses. Oh, the holder and the snapper and the injury. No. You kick field goals. That's what you got to do. And he just has not been good at it. By far one of the worst kickers in the NFL. So I hope Greg Joseph wins. But whenever you listen to Brant Boyer or Kyle Shanahan or anybody talk, they are still pretty much behind Jake Moody. And I don't think that this is a true competition. The only way that I think Greg Joseph can win is if Jake Moody folds in the preseason games. I don't even think if Greg Joseph out-duels and out-kicks Jake Moody in training camp, I don't think that matters. What happens in those 3 preseason games, that's what I think it's going to come down to. And it needs to be clear and decisive that Greg Joseph's the winner. If it's close, they're going with Jake Moody. He'll get claimed by another team because of the talent, because of, being a 3rd-round pick and all those things. I don't give a damn about that. I want reliability at the kicker position. Never should have been drafted anyway. But Greg Joseph, you got a lot of 49ers fans rooting for you and excited to see what he's going to do. I have to say thank you to our executive producers of this series, Josh, Ben, and Zach. They have been awesome. And for us in the 49ers Rush team, we're just going to keep counting them down.